Does your washing ever blow away? Singapore is very unique. Asian parents are typically very honest. That was a bit of a shock. You do see it quite a lot, plugged into the matrix. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. If you are new here, hello, my name is Georgia and I've been living here in Singapore for 5 years now, and I create content here on my YouTube channel all about my life here in Singapore, all different aspects. So if you are interested, do be sure to hit the subscribe button if you want to hang around, and give this video a big thumbs up if you do enjoy it. So in today's video, I'm just going to be talking about some, I guess, random observations that I observed when I first moved to Singapore. Some things that definitely stood out, and yeah, I think they're things that I haven't really spoken about before. So I have a list. Let's get started. Okay, one thing that really stood out to me when we first moved to Singapore is when we would be going onto public transport, and I think it was because in the UK, I was on the London Underground a lot, and we could never get Wi-Fi down there. I've heard that it's changed now, but a few years ago, I could never get 3G or any signal while I was on the train on the London Underground. So everyone would just like read books or read the newspaper. But in Singapore, when we came on the MRT for the first time, it was just so weird seeing everybody just glued to their phone. It's very common in Singapore for people to be watching like TV shows or movies on their phone as they're commuting everywhere. And I guarantee you, if you've not been to Singapore before, go on the train and just look around and you see that everyone is glued to their phone. Unfortunately, including me now, I do exactly the same thing, but it's something that definitely stood out because we were like, whoa, look, like everyone's just like plugged into the matrix. Like no one's really like paying attention to what's going on. It does annoy me when that continues onto the escalator, because a lot of people get off the train, they're still on their phone, they're walking to the escalator, like they don't look up once. That does get a bit infuriating because you're like, come on, like I just want to get up the stairs. It also makes people walk a lot slower when they're on their phones. Like I'm guilty of it as well. If I'm on my phone, I'm going to be walking slower and not really paying attention. So yeah, that's just one observation. When you go on the MRT, everyone is on their phone. Another point I've been thinking a lot about recently is something that is completely unique to Singapore. So typically when you go to any other Asian country, Thailand, Indonesia, Japan, China, because these countries already have their main language, it would be really hard to kind of integrate, I think, into that culture without knowing that language. That would kind of be a barrier in the way of getting to know a country's like real culture, how those locals really think and speak. I think you really get to know a country based on those things. I think that's why it's so important to learn languages, because it's like a gateway straight into really absorbing everything about a certain country and their people. What I'm trying to get at is that Singapore is super unique in the fact that everyone speaks English and the main language is English. I think it's probably the only Asian country where this happens, which means that I was able to get complete insight into how Singaporeans are, how they act, how they think, how they speak with one another, because I get to hear it in English. I just thought, it just occurred to me recently, like how unique that is for an Asian country to be able to hear it all in your own native language and really understand them. So that's been incredible for me, especially, you know, when in the workplace as well. I have first-hand insight into how locals really act and how they think without having to decipher it in another language. Although Singlish was almost like deciphering a different language, but I've obviously come to grips with that now. Singapore is very unique in the sense that everyone speaks English, so you can really kind of understand the culture. Did I articulate that very well? I'm not sure. I'm sure you guys understand what I'm trying to get at. Okay, another observation is that sometimes I feel like sarcasm and satire is kind of lost in Singapore. It's not, I don't know, I feel like previously in a lot of videos I will say things sarcastically. Like it's very British of me to be sarcastic. I am like Miss Sarcasm, and I think a lot of Brits are, but a lot of the time I feel like it's very lost in translation, and sometimes I hold back from being super sarcastic in my videos just because I know that a lot of the time it's been lost and people don't really get it, or they actually believe that what I'm saying when it's like clearly a joke. And then in that sense, you have to be careful, because if you are being sarcastic and it's just like completely not understood, then it can come across like you're being rude, or that you meant a certain thing but you didn't, you were just being sarcastic. Okay, another observation that I first noticed when I moved to Singapore, but something that I love, is seeing washing hanging out the windows of HDBs. Now, I've heard that a lot of people don't like this because they think it makes Singapore look like messy or doesn't quite fit in with the aesthetic in Singapore of like clean and perfect. So essentially in HDBs, I don't think a lot of residents have dryers, so they just think it's easier to feed it out the windows and let their washing hang that way. I love it. I think it gives Singapore character and it's like authentic, and I just love seeing it. I take photos of it all the time just because I just think it looks so cool. I don't know, is that weird? If you've got like a creative eye, I think that, I don't know, it's just something that I really appreciate, and I'm just like, yes, that is Singapore. I love it. If you do live in a HDB and you hang your washing out, do tell me stories about like, does your washing ever blow away? Like, I've always wondered, like, you must drop things all the time outside the window, no? I'm not sure. But if you've got any funny stories, or if you do hang your washing out the window, do let me know, I'm very interested. Okay, another thing that really stood out to me when I first moved here is that everyone in Singapore just looked super healthy and fit. In the Western world, I feel like women are a lot bigger than in Asian countries typically. I think it's a lot to do with genetics, and I know that in the UK we generally have like bigger bust sizes. I think the average UK size for women is a 12. So we're just generally a little bit bigger, curvier. When I first moved to Singapore, I was like, oh my God, everyone's so skinny and beautiful, and everyone just looks so fit, and like you work out all the time. So that was definitely a shock to me. I was like, whoa. Over the years, I've come to realize that Singapore is very honest, but maybe too honest. And I've talked about this before, about the kind of like brutal honesty. Sometimes I feel like Singaporeans don't necessarily mince their words. They don't necessarily know when to think if something could be offensive. In some ways, I feel like Singapore socially is maybe like 10 years behind the UK in terms of those kinds of things. I'm not saying the UK does it the right way, because I think there's a lot of things that we don't do the right way. We're getting very too sensitive, in my opinion. But there are certain things in Singapore that I've experienced where I'm like, oh, okay. So I've had a talk about this with Singaporean friends, and they just say it's a cultural thing. You know, Asian parents are typically very honest. Well, I know that Chinese parents are very honest, and there's always been that kind of brutal honesty amongst the family, telling you if you need to lose weight, if you look too skinny, or if you need to get married, you should hurry up and get a boyfriend, you should get a better job, that kind of thing. That's a lot to deal with. I think that sometimes that's translated into the next generation, and then they feel like they can say things to people that possibly could hurt their feelings, but they don't necessarily think it through. It's just like different people's social norms, I suppose. For example, when I first went for an interview for my job, my boss, who was actually interviewing me for the role, I showed him like a video of my YouTube channel, and I remember he was like, wow, you really lost weight since then. And I was like, oh wow, like it really caught me off guard. I was like, this is an interview and he's just commented on my weight and basically implied that I was fat before. That was a bit of a shock. It's not quite professional, but something that definitely wouldn't happen in the UK. You just would never comment on it. So yeah, I think times are changing, but what do you guys think? Do you think that people should be thinking before they speak and a little bit more cautious with their words, or do you think it's just cultural and like you're totally fine with it? Interesting discussion. Another point is a strong work culture in Singapore, something I have experienced firsthand. In the same way that studying culture is super strict in Singapore, I feel like that really translates into work life in Singapore as well. Very hardworking, working around the clock. Similar to Japanese work culture, but I don't think that hardcore. I don't think we're quite at that level in Singapore, but it's definitely tough to find a balance between work and life. There's also like an unspoken rule where you shouldn't leave your office until your boss leaves, and if you finish at 6:30, you still shouldn't leave at 6:30 because it looks like you're not hardworking. What do you guys think if you work in Singapore? I've had a lot of you guys say that you have a great work-life balance in Singapore, which is great. So I think it probably depends what industry you're working in. That probably has a big effect on your work culture. But let me know, do you work around the clock in Singapore, or do you have a good work-life balance? This is a funny observation, but I want you guys to let me know. I have observed many a time that the elderly will walk around and they'll be like slapping their arms like this. And so many times I'm like, what are people doing? They just like seem to be thumping themselves. I think it's probably to do with circulation or something like that. I know when I've got a sore arm, I don't know. Yeah, it's probably to do with circulation. Please do comment below. Let me know what that's all about. What is the reason? You do see it quite a lot. People are just like hitting themselves, but it's usually the elderly. The elderly are so much more active and sociable in Singapore than the elderly in the UK. Now, I have a few reasons for this. I think number one, it has a lot to do with the weather. I know if the weather was like this all year round in the UK, then the elderly would come out of their house a lot more probably and socialise. But because it gets so freezing cold in the UK, the elderly just stay home. They need to keep warm. I love seeing the aunties and uncles kind of congregate in Singapore, whether it's like under a HDB or in one of those like public gym park things where they're thumping themselves. I see a lot of the elderly doing Tai Chi together as well, which I absolutely love seeing, and I like how they take the time to still be social even if they're like 80, 90 plus. Also, I've discussed it a lot before, but the elderly will often still be working, whether that's in a hawker centre or a restaurant. It was something that really surprised me when I first moved here, because I was like, oh my god, but they're so old, like shouldn't they be retired, shouldn't they just be resting? But no, Singaporeans just keep going. This could be to do with the fact that they still need to earn money, but a lot of you have told me it's because they just want to keep working. That probably comes into the work culture thing where they just don't want to stop. There's probably a few different reasons, but I really love how they keep active. You know, I love seeing the uncles riding by on their bicycles. I just love seeing it, so yes. All right guys, I'm gonna wrap the video up here. I hope you enjoyed hearing what I had to say. Be sure to give it a big thumbs up if you did enjoy listening, and do leave a comment below. Oh, I will also link my necklace and my top down below because I know we'll get questions about it. I'll link it in the description box for you guys if you want to go check them out. If you want to see more from me as well, you can go catch me on Instagram at The Vintage Vision. I'm uploading on my stories there every single day. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching. Bye.